Hello there chaps, I'm going to do a little video showing you how I dismantle a WEBER DCOE carburetor. These are a set of 6 belonging onto a Ferrari 365 V12 engine. First of all I'm going to mark them, strip them, restore all their parts, zinc plating, phosphate coating, vapor blasting the aluminium, fitting new service kits, and then rebuilding the carburetors again. So the process involves marking every part that comes off the carburetor, including the orientation of the throttle levers, the spindles, the chokes, venturis, top lid to main casting and bottom well cover, and the choke mechanisms and all that. So by the end of the restoration, my customer will have a set of pretty much as good as new WEBER 38 DCOE carburetors, match set, ready to put back on his rebuilt Ferrari engine to complete his classic car restoration. I'm going to start with one carburetor and I'll dismantle that completely. I need to bring some boxes so I can put all the parts in. So I'll just focus on the one carburetor now. You won't need to see all the rest. So this is just for the stripping process. Okay. Right, this is carburetor number 1. I'm going to get my my puncher. Alright. This is it's got a you punch with this. Alright. I'm going to mark the carburetor. I'm going to mark it there. There we go. That's 1. In fact, I'll mark them all now. So I'm going to attempt to strip carburetor number 1. First thing I do is to remove this throttle lever and then mark it. So this is a size 11mm spanner. One of these bad boys. Now you want to be careful here so you don't bend the spindle. You might want to use a blade, help you lift the Loctite washer off, like that, and then wiggle the lever off. Carburetor number 1. I need to take a photo so I remember. Choo 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 choo. Okay, that can go there. So this is lever for carburetor number 1. And I'm going to mark this on the inside with a punch mark so I can recognize it. Yeah, a little mark. Can't see, it's just there. But that will show after the zinc plating. So I'm going to get a couple of boxes. So you just use these ordinary plastic boxes or whatever you have. Put all your different metals in. So like that one goes in there like that, alongside with the steel nut. This is all for steel parts that get zinc plated, and the washer, and splay them out so you can fill them up straight, ready to go to treatment. So I've got the lever off, that's good. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the choke mechanism so I can use this flange if I need to secure the carburetor in the vise, which I probably will. Screwdriver. It's the standard Stanley flat edge screwdriver, which I've used quite a few times on these, so it is a pretty good fit. You see what I'm doing? Probably not, no. This camera stuff sucks. So just check that this is good. Yep, very nice. So undo the screws. These screws have M4 brass flat washers. Well, these don't. Possibly missing, or the factory didn't put any in. Okay, so you've just got the M4 screw with a captive spring washer. Okay, and this is a steel item, doesn't need to be marked because it's not critical. In with the steel parts. Okay, and the other one in with the steel parts, and here we have our first choke mechanism. Okay, that's what lifts the pistons up and down to get cold start and fuel enrichment. And this gets a bit complicated here because you've got this lovely little brass mesh. Okay, it slides out, and this needs cleaning, and this goes in with the brass parts. Okay, well, that's the first bit of the brass parts. Now this needs dismantling, and to do that first I need to mark it. So I'll find a inconspicuous place to mark it. So I think I'll just mark it up there. Okie dokie, with a number 1, or a single punch hole to indicate number 1. Okay, there you go. I'm going to do that again with a bit more spring pressure on this to make a deeper mark, because when this is vapor blasted it will be difficult to see. Now that is much better. Alright, so should I dismantle this now? I think I will. So put this carburetor back to its place, and we've got a 8mm cable, outer cable securing screw here. So I'll just get my 8mm spanner. 8mm spanner. And here comes a steel screw. If you're not sure about what's steel and what isn't, you can always use a magnet. And the magnet, if it's magnetizing, it's steel. Okay, so that goes in with the zinc plating parts. Now, this is a the inner wire locking nut and screw. So take that little screw off, which is steel, in with the steel parts. Now this is I believe part of the bracket, so this can't be removed. Now this is something that I found out that was pretty nifty when it comes to zinc plating your parts. You can put rubber in with zinc plating parts and it won't damage the rubber, and it won't coat the rubber. It will coat the metal that's around the rubber, but not the rubber. So this lever can go straight in for zinc plating and it will come back as beautiful as new, or close to it. And they degrease the parts, so I don't have to degrease them, and neither do you, but the rubber seal there stays intact. So the next thing here is to undo this 8mm nut and remove this little gear. Alright, now you might want to notice that there is a marking, a line on each gear to tell you where they line up when you come to install them, so they install correctly, which I think this is it's quite difficult to see this actually. Let me get my magnifying glass so I can see what on earth I'm doing. Yeah, it's very faint on this side, but you can see the line here, but not on the other, unless you've got a magnifying glass. Also this little press fit, what would you call this? I don't know what you'd call it. That needs to go in a little further. It's popped out a bit, possibly because the customer's been pulling them out and pulling in, because I know he had a problem with his choke mechanisms. So we've removed the brass gauze, the thin gauze. We've removed the outer choke cable screw. We've removed the inner choke cable wire screw, and now we're going to undo the lever from the kick gear. Alright, so that is also a number 8. You've got to be careful here, because these little lugs, aluminium lugs that are part of the casting, often snap off. If you put too much pressure, it will just snap this off. So this needs to be done with care. Alright, so brace it in your hands and just put gentle pressure. There you go, it's starting to come now. Okay, this is spring loaded, the lever is. So we undo the steel nut, that can go in with the steel parts along with its spring washer. Now the spring is wrapped around the lever, which creates the negative pressure, or whatever you call that. This needs to come off, wiggle a little bit, and then slide it off the spring clip. There we go. Okay, so here is the unit of the lever unit of the choke mechanism, which will get zinc plated all in one. That goes in with the steel parts. Next, we want a tiny thin, that can come out on its own. This is the return spring for the choke, and as you can see, there is a, well, you might not be able to see, there is a protruding piece of the wire of the spring that goes into a little hole in there. That's its home. Alright, so this is also a steel part, and you can zinc plate this. Next, we're going to pull off the little brass cog gear, like that, okay, and that can go in with the brass parts. Now, the brass parts either get vapor blasted, ideally they get vapor blasted, but if they're too small and too intricate, you have to do them by hand, okay? Something like this, I will get vapor blasted, but carefully. All the parts need careful. So that goes in with the brass parts. And just to finish off the removal of all the parts from this little unit to go to vapor blasting, I get my spring-loaded puncher, alright, and I punch this little, well, what would you call it? Press fit, I don't know what it is, anyway, push that out, okay. Give it a few of these, there we go. So this, I believe, is aluminium, but let me just check. That's one magnetic end, and yes, that is a steel part. Can also be zinc plated, although it is quite of a sensitive part because it's a press fit item. If it's got too thick a coating, it won't fit in very easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to clean this. Okay, clean it and reinstall it as it is, no plating. So that needs to go in. The parts that are going to be in this particular container, where I've just put this unit to be cleaned and not treated in any other way, this is where I put my used gaskets, my used seals, my used springs, everything that you think you're not going to need, which you probably won't, but everything that comes off the carburetors that you think you're not going to need or will need to replace to the carburetors as it is, you put it in one place. So including gaskets, seals, springs, things like pump weight balls, pump weights, generally don't need any vapor blasting, just cleaning and putting back in the carbs. They all stay here. So, and here is our last cog, our choke lifting brass gear cog. This will need cleaning, so that it goes in with the brass parts. And here we got a stripped bare casting for the choke mechanism, and this will go in a very big container where all the bodies and all the lids go in, the aluminium parts, and the chokes and the auxiliary venturis. Alright, so that one's done. Back to the carburetor. So let's do the easy stuff first. Customer told me that these fuel unions, which are very nice and original, have already been swapped about, so there's no point marking this because it's not going to be, well, it's unlikely that it's the correct one. So this goes straight into the brass parts. And this is an example of things that I would keep for reference. They are included in the new service kits that we're going to fit, but I keep them until the restoration has been completed and beyond. Okay, so these go in with all the used gaskets and stuff. Jet covers, again, customer did not keep them in order, and he didn't mind if we swapped them about. Now this is a sensitive part, you see, because gasket goes in. You have to zinc plate the steel cover. However, the wing nut is brass, and this cannot be thrown in with the zinc. And it's got a little cork gasket. Well, I say cork, it's probably a fibre seal there. So this is something that you either replace, buy a new one, or you remove the wing nut basically by punching it through, clean the wing nut, vapor blast it, fit it back in again, and then with the aid of a sort of socket underneath that prevents the wing nut from going backwards, you would then punch again downwards to open up the lip to basically secure the jet cover in. I'm going to do this, but I'm not going to record it because it's not a pretty procedure and it's messy, alright, and it's but it is beautiful because it means that you can use a beautiful original part and reinstall it with a brass wing nut. So as I said, I'm not going to mark this. I'm going to leave it in with the used items so I can deal with that separately. So next out is going to be the difficult studs, the trumpet studs, which need to go to the zinc platers. These are I think they're M6, and there's 3 ways to do it. Fitting 2 nuts on them, tightening the nuts, and then undoing both nuts together, hopefully taking the stud out. Another way to do it is to use grips to grip onto the thicker shank by the surface of the carburetor and turn it without damaging the surface of the stud, because then it looks ridiculous, or damaging the threads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get a couple of nuts to remove these bad boys. Alright, it's not the pretty sight this is. I don't like doing this. But we're going to do it and it's going to be good. I might get it very nice, tight.
So I recommend a pimped up apple and blackberry crumble, or crumble. Love it, completely
Top cover screws are loose because we checked the top cover underneath to make sure that there is no fulcrum pin cracking. So, okay. So this, thankfully, is not touching the threads, it's touching the thicker shank of the stud. These are easy to remove. Normally, well, on old carburetors, these can be awful. So that's one. Okay. And that doesn't need to be marked, it can go in with our steel parts. Second one.
What could possibly go wrong, Stu?
Oh, I can tell you what, man, turning things, yeah, this isn't great. It's not disastrous either, but this isn't great. So if you do have the nuts handy, try the nuts, because it can be a prettier job. Anyway, this will be degreased and zinc plated, and it will be fine, actually, just fine. So, okay, I think the next thing to do is to remove the bottom cover. Okay. Get something a little bit soft so we can put a bit of pressure on. Okay. Now here are the bottom cover screws, M5s, and you've got the brass flat washers. Need to go in with the brass, steel retaining screw with a captive washer in with the steel, and repeat. Repeat. And repeat. Give this little cover up a tap with a mallet, copper faced mallet. Give it a bit of a tap until it goes a bit dull. If these have been in for years, they need a bit of tapping to dislodge them. Come on, baby. Yeah, this is probably the most persistent one I've ever had. That's not ideal, but thankfully all good. So this is the bottom wheel cover. I'm going to mark it, remove its old seal gasket, stuck on it like glue. Okay, peel this off nice and evenly so you don't have any left behind. And again, be careful not to be too rough and damage the sealing surface of the aluminium. Lovely, gasket's out. This is part of the repair kit, okay? And I'm going to mark this on the inside with a one punch to indicate that this belongs to number 1 carburetor. Okay, so this goes with the aluminium parts, part of the vapor blasting treatment. There you go. Okay, now I think we can pull the chokes and venturis out. Okay, so make sure that there's no locking screw preventing you pulling out the venturis. This one doesn't. I think these are spring clip secured. Yeah, that's the spring clip there. And to remove these, poke a little screwdriver in the side and hoik it out. This goes for phosphate coating. Okay, it's steel but it's black, and these go for phosphate coating. In with a phosphate coating top up, whatever let's think, what is it called, the container, yeah. Okay, so this is the auxiliary venturis. I believe they are Well, they are 4.5s. Okay. Now this needs marking with one. How do I do it now? I'm going to scribe on this. I'm going to scribe it with one right. Yeah, one right. So number 1 and then the letter R. So you got a scriber here. This is for writing on metal. Okay. So again, get a nice little surface to secure it. So,
in France, yes. Which music awards have announced that they are taking a break from the ceremony this year? The Mobos or the Grammys?
R.
The
So I know how to put it back in again. Lovely. Okay, this again will get vapor blasted and will be, I mean, it's good as it is, but it will look new. Okay. And then we take the left hand one. Alright, remove its spring clip, like so. Alright, now, the thing with the spring clip, you'll notice that it's got one of the ends sort of, well, poking out of it. When you look inside the hole for the spring clip where it fits, you want to stick the long end of the spring into the deepest ravine in there. Okay, so push it in and then in it goes, and it's in place now. Okay, reverse the procedure like that. That's the spring clip. In with the black phosphate coating parts. I'm going to mark this now with one left. Done. I need a bigger container for the aluminium. Something like this. I'm going to need a bigger one after the carburetors go in. And good. So this can go there for all the aluminium bits. I'm going to skip the chokes, do those after. So number 19 to remove the fuel filter cover plug. Okay, so let's do this whilst the top cover is in situ, and I will slightly tighten these. Alright, I hope you can see what I'm doing. Because these fuel filter cover plugs can be difficult to remove, especially when you've removed the top cover. There you go. That wasn't easy. But then again, nothing good is. Well, some things might be. Don't know what I'm talking about. Right, brass plug. I'm not going to mark it. Straight in with the brass. Fibre seal. In with the used gasket parts. And now for our fuel filter, our internal, beautiful, clean fuel filter. I don't think this has had any use. In with the used parts. So now we're going to remove the top cover bolts to remove the top cover.